everybody. Welcome to Culture by Numbers, where data geeks meet pop culture and we dive deep into ways that marketers, data scientists, and ad tech practitioners can collaborate with brands looking to utilize tools for performance. Today, we have Chris Williams, a 30-year veteran and pioneer of digital advertising. Chris is a past president of the IAB in Canada and served as a media strategist and managing director at agencies such as BBDO and Havas. Currently, he is CMO at ARIMA Data, a Canadian startup with an advanced data science platform offering market mix models integrated with synthetic data population for marketers. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks a lot, Sunny. Really appreciate your time today.
Well, so Chris, I'm really excited to have you today because I was really intrigued when I read about ARIMA and how it combines live market mix modeling with consumer insights discovery and media planning tools all on one platform. Tell me what you've been up to these days.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I just got back from the ANA's Data Analytics Conference in Chicago. It was amazing to see what's going on with data analytics in the marketing sphere. Tons and tons of activity around improving the quality of data and lots about synthetic data, a lot about first-party data, clean rooms. It was a real eye-opener in terms of like the amount of activity that's going on in that area.
That's amazing. And so I'm wondering, coming off of the ANA, what are the big issues in data-driven marketing that has been on the top of the minds of marketers at the conference?
Data and analytics are they're not the be-all and end-all, but they're fantastic tools. And the question is, what marketer is going to use it for? So really, marketers are all about growth. They want to improve their brands. They want to get their brands to communicate more with their target audiences. But it's also about finding those new audiences where they can grow their sales, essentially, and move things along. And that's where we're starting to see a lot of activity around MMM and synthetic data.
Right. So the age-old question doesn't change. Growth is important, and that's what the ROI and the KPIs have been, independent of cookie deprecation. Can you give me an example where there has been strong demand in brand growth and an example that you've seen has been effective?
Yeah, for sure. And one of the challenges is finding new audiences, right? You've got brands who are typically a little bit more mature, and so they've captured a lot of people that are already clients or are well aware of what they do. And so the question is, where are the new people coming from that will help those brands grow? One area that we've seen, especially here in Canada, is new citizens to the country. So there's been an enormous amount of growth in immigration in the country. So in Canada, somewhere between 400 to 1 million people every year come to the country on various types of things, whether they're students or new citizens or landed immigrants and so on. Those are people who are coming to the country. They've got families. They need checking accounts. They need TV services. They need mobile providers. They've got all these needs, and basically a lot of brands are looking at that group and saying, here's an opportunity to establish a relationship with families and people who are. So we want to be able to establish, what does the brand stand for? What's the benefit for the consumer? But also get that relationship going, get them signed up, and get them into the spectrum of product.
That's absolutely true. I remember when I was a VP at IDT Telecom, which was an international prepaid telecom provider here in the United States, we essentially took advantage of the fact that international citizens were calling home and needed long-distance phone numbers, but didn't have the credit worthiness to even open an account with AT&T or Verizon. And so we were selling these prepaid calling cards at bodegas in inner cities or where they had immigrated to, and it was a fantastic market. Can you give me an example of how ARIMA has been able to identify these areas of brand growth and finding these new audiences? It'd be great if you could show a demo of some of the capabilities that ARIMA has.
Yeah, let's do that. One of the things that you just mentioned is how you find those audiences, and one of the things is geography. It starts with that. How we approach it is, and I've put this together. You can see the screen. I've looked at defining an audience here as an example of new citizens in Canada. We operate in both Canada and the United States for both MMM and synthetic data. So the interface is exactly the same. We'll just use the Canadian audience because it's the most familiar with. I've created an audience of people who are South Asian. They're speaking languages, Hindi, Punjabi, as their conversational language. So that helps to say we've got nearly 1 million Canadians, 3% of the population. So it's a really significant group. that we can go after in terms of marketing. And the question, let's go down the rabbit hole of looking at their financial relationships and understanding how they are different. Just as you were talking about prepaid cell phone, in this case, their banking relationships show very specific patterns. And so what we're looking at, the audience that has a main financial institution, who are they banking with? And when we look at the indices, they're not your regular banks, which is a challenge for the regular bank. How do we get this audience, especially when these people have already established relationships with very specific banks like ICICI and other ones that are smaller, much more focused. They're agile, they're nimble, and they're right in that community. And so it gives you an idea of the challenges of being a regular bank. For instance, TD down here only has a smaller index against these other ones. So that gives us an idea of how big is the audience, what does the relationship look like. Then we can get into what does their media habit look like? How does that change? We're thinking about what are the specific media habits where they index highly. Again, where we're heading towards is some insights, some media planning, from a financial perspective. And let's look at best for brand building. We're looking at TV is probably a good way to do it. Very analog focused. But if we're looking to activate those audiences, meaning acquire them, we're looking into the digital area. As you can see, digital and search, digital videos. These are the areas where they're highly penetrated.
That is fantastic. I know that there are big 5 Canadian savings banks from CIBC to RBC, and this is a great opportunity for acquisition of customers from those newly unbanked citizens that are part of the immigration wave. So not only do you have to understand the audiences and their affinity or brand preferences for the banking institutions, this gives you the baseline and a framework for reaching out to them based on their media consumption behaviors and whether they prefer South Asian language programming in their own native language, or whether they've been able to cross over into other publishers. So that's fantastic. Is there anything else that you wanted to show about how you can measure the media consumption across the channels?
Yeah, let's get into that. One thing I wanted to point out is what we're working with is synthetic data. This many of the media insight tools that people are using, but what's actually behind it is a fully synthetic model of the country, both Canada and the United States. What we've done is we've built out this synthetic population at the individual level. We have 32 million in Canada, 32 million synthetic individuals with about 50,000 attributes against each of those. In the States, it's 330 million synthetic individuals. And that's really a very different approach, even though right now what you're seeing is aggregation, percentages, reports. Each of those groups is actually individuals that are seen within the platform. And so we can look at a lot of different things like understanding these reports. But the nice thing about it is to start working out where do they live? What habits are happening from a geographic perspective? Geography works really, really well at integrating both digital and analog together. You're not reliant on cookies or email addresses or hashed email addresses to try and bring things together in those areas. You're literally working with synthetic individuals as a model of the country. You can map it out for the major cities. That was Montreal, this is Toronto. Then we can go right down to a very discrete, granular geographic unit, which in Canada we would use postal codes. In the United States we use. And here what you're seeing is the red is high index and the blue is low index. And very clearly this audience has a pattern in where they're living. That helps us understand what kind of media options that we would go after. Could be setting up search geography, social by geography, but also things like out-of-home locations, retail locations, and then mobility patterns built on top of this location intelligence. And
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's really combining the online and offline and foot traffic as far as distance, driving distance to retail outlets who can be partners to banks or even to the branches themselves. So this is fantastic to have that level of granularity of data around potential audiences for growth. So this is fantastic and fascinating to see it visualized at this level of granularity based on a targeted audience.
What allows you is start to align your media and say, we're going to go out and buy certain areas based on geography, knowing that they're going to overlap with each other really nicely. So whether it's out of home, even direct mail, which can be really good at closing the offer. you can layer on all these different types of media, TV, radio, everything together, so that you can really hit these audiences and optimize your media plan without wasting money on areas that just really have none of your target audience.
That's fantastic. It's really talking about precisioning tools around areas for targeted marketing and looking at cross-channel ways to reach out to these target audiences across foot traffic to radio, out of home, branding, and cable. So data seems to be a tool for growth, and we're just scratching the surface in terms of standing up models with enriched data and integrating with in-house marketing systems. If people find out more about ARIMA data, do you have any sample content that people can look up to reference?
We have a YouTube channel. We're really active on LinkedIn to talk about the kinds of things that we're seeing in the market, especially in cross-media, where things are very active in trying to understand the interplay between media types. And so that's one of the areas that we do a lot of work on our YouTube channels to talk about that. Last thing is how it looks on the cross-media side. We can use these things to use synthetic data to build out fully integrated media plans that look at reach and frequency. So in this case, we're still working with our South Asian audience. And by focusing on that audience, their media habits, we're able to look at how we would spend a couple of $1 million worth of media money in terms of getting reach and frequency against each of the media channels. And these are video-based, both analog and digital. And what does it look like when we combine them all for a reach curve? So we're trying to get up to about 90% reach with a decent frequency against that particular audience. So we can layer in direct mail and out of home and other media against that.
This is fantastic to have that reach curve, because we're always looking for incremental reach based on the addition of channels. And so that's fantastic that you built these reach curve based on the synthetic audiences that are targeted for this particular geography. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else, Chris, that you think is top of mind that marketers ought to be thinking of as they try to grow their brand?
Sure. One of the questions that always comes up when we're talking about synthetic data is how does it get validated? In other words, as a model of the country, we think of the actual media plan and the insights as really just part of the model. It's a hypothesis of, if we do these things, we should see growth. And so the point being is, rather than trying to focus on accuracy of the model, which is important, the reason why you do that is the outcome. You do want to see incremental sales. You do want to see growth at the profit and revenue side. So that's why the focus of MMM and bringing those two things together works really well.
Excellent. That answers some of the challenger questions about how this model has been built. It doesn't matter as long as you're looking at measuring the outcomes and attributing that back to your targeted campaign.
I wouldn't say the words doesn't matter. The accuracy of the model is important, in the fact that the better the accuracy of the model means that you're going to be more confident about the outcomes before they happen. But outcomes are really what you're after. Again, geography really helps in terms of the accuracy of the model. We work very closely to derive insights from the census of every country that we're working in. So that gives us the accuracy to know how many people are in the model and where they're located.
Excellent. I can't wait to see more about ARIMA, and really want to appreciate the time you spent today to give us a demo of some of this all-in-one synthetic platform for persona building as well as cross-channel planning. Thanks again, Chris.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Sunny. Cheers.